Hi, and welcome back to BGTV. I'm Angela Betancourt, and thanks for being here. I recently read an article on PR News called Certified Yapper, Why Everyone Should Not Be a Podcaster. And I found this article to be one, refreshing, but also it reminded me of very important lessons when it comes to our work as communicators and how we advise our clients. And basically, the article says that 27,000 new podcasts launched daily, according to Riverside. And Riverside is the platform that I'm using to record this video. And 92% don't make it past 10 episodes. That is a crazy statistic. But at the same time, I'm not surprised because podcasting is hard. It's a lot of work. I think people underestimate how much work it actually takes. Launching a podcast, first and foremost, involves having a vision. What is this podcast going to be about? What is the direction? And then it requires a lot of production. You have to find guests. You need to record. You need to edit the videos, which is where a lot of the magic happens. Market the podcast. And on top of all of that, you have to do it consistently. Podcasting is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I always tell myself and clients as well that before you think about launching a podcast, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to do this every single week or whatever cadence you decide for an entire year? Because if the answer is no, then starting a podcast might not be the right thing for you or for your brand or for your client's brand at the moment. And the article gives examples of celebrities that launched podcasts because they thought, well, I'm famous, and realized that even your fame doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have a successful podcast, because you need to have that vision, that clarity. You need to have those memorable moments. You really need to think about, what are my listeners going to take away from this each time they tune in? And so it's a lot of work. And the bigger lesson that this reminds me of, and this applies beyond podcasting, is that you don't need to be on every single platform. Just because a platform is hot, just because it's new, it doesn't mean you need to be on there. Because like any platform, it requires consistency, it requires careful planning, it requires a visual identity and therefore branding. It needs to roll into your brand. It should feel cohesive. It's a lot of work. And so as a communicator, I'm always reminding myself, just because a new thing launched doesn't mean I need to be on it, especially not right now. Sometimes it's good to take a little bit of time to look into that platform, see where it's going, see if it fits into your overall strategy. And also, do you love it? Because you need to be able to love it if you want to be able to do it for the amount of time that it takes. If you're thinking about, I just want to go viral, then you might be setting yourself up for a really, really big disappointment. So I always tell clients and myself that it's better to pick one platform and really lean into that platform, and then use the other platforms that make sense for your brand, whether it's Instagram or Threads, as supporting actors in helping to bolster up that content that you are creating. And in my last video, I talked about the 2026 predictions that I think are going to come true this year. And in there, I mentioned that I think it's really important that everyone have a video strategy. And what does that mean? That means you create videos that, again, align with your messaging, align with your goals, and then you make those videos on a platform. I like YouTube because I think that's a good place for videos to live, like the home base. And then they can be repurposed to fit any of the other platforms, whether that's LinkedIn or Instagram or even Substack. And so I really think that a video strategy is going to be really, really important. But then you have to figure out what's the right platform. So if you are going to launch a podcast, I highly recommend launching a video podcast, because now you can repurpose that content and people can watch, or people can just listen, depending on what makes the most sense for them. I just wanted to come on here because I saw this article, and I'll link it down below. It really just reminded me of this very important topic of, just because it's hot, just because it's trending, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to jump on it and waste so much time on it. Because as this article mentions, poorly produced podcast can hurt your brand. And so, especially one that's not consistent. So, yep, thank you so much for joining me on BGTV. I just wanted to come on here and just talk about this really quickly. Definitely, a lot of things are going to be linked down below. If you're interested in trying out the Riverside platform, I'm such a fan. It's really made video content a lot easier for me and my bandwidth. And so feel free to link to that down below. Thank you again so much, and I'll see you in the next video.